Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you a PLE reactions video live, just coming off of Night of Champions in Riyadh, taking place on June 27th. This will be a very special edition for obvious reasons if you listen to The Push for any amount of time, but we will get to that with the main event, obviously. But per usual, we'll go through every single match, give you our thoughts, reviews, and ratings, and then give you our thoughts, reviews, and ratings on the card overall as a whole. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the opening contest of the evening, which is the King of the Ring finals, featuring main event Jey Uso and the ruler Obafemi. KP, thoughts on this one? Did the right guy win? And just how'd you rate this match overall?
Well, first and foremost, you asked there, did the right guy win? Absolutely, 100% without a doubt. Yeah, we were obviously very sort of dubious going into this one. It very much felt like the writing was on the wall for Obafemi to take a loss here, and that would come, from someone like Brock Lesnar, who obviously has had a lot of history in very recent times with the ruler. So naturally speaking, that was something that we thought was plausible. Thankfully, though, didn't take place in this contest. Quite surprising. You'd think probably the Saudi would be the perfect place for someone like Lesnar to show up, because obviously, doesn't have to do too much, quickly in and out, and gets a rather handsome paycheck for it, I would assume. But yeah, thankfully that was not the case. We do see one-on-one just straight up between these two men. And it goes pretty much how everyone would expect it to when it comes down to just the one-on-one situation. We see the two sort of going back and forth. Obviously, it is Jey Uso at the end of the day, so they're not going to have Obafemi be completely dominant and one-sided against him. But on the sort of like the other side of that coin, this isn't the longest match either. So it is over in, I think it was about just shy of 10 minutes if I had to guess. Didn't actually sit down and time it, but yeah, you sort of get the implication behind what I'm trying to say here. It's a bit of a sluggish, slow-paced, and sloppy match, though. As much as I love the result, I think it's absolutely fantastic that Obafemi gets the win here. That comes in courtesy of sort of Oba escaping a sleeper hold. He then sort of like turned things around, eventually getting out of that hold. He launches Jey across the ring, hits a lovely uppercut, and then we see the fall from grace, which would seal the victory here. It is a particularly slow, sluggish, sloppy kind of matchup, though, which is I'm not gonna say that I expected a world class matchup between these two men. Like, I think that's completely fair to say. This one was always going to be a little bit sort of choppy, perhaps, I guess you could say. And that did sort of feel like the case in this one, unfortunately, because I say that it felt like Oba was holding back throughout basically the entire contest. He couldn't be quite so aggressive. He couldn't be quite so commanding in the ring. Didn't have that overall presence that I feel like he probably should have had against Jey Uso. So yeah, it did feel a little bit sort of, I don't know, underwhelming at times, but the result is more than enough for me to, favor this match rather than, be critical overly against it. So yeah, I enjoyed the result for what it was, and I'm glad to see we got King of the Ring Oba. So yeah, I'm more than happy with that one. We'll see what he does going into SummerSlam, where obviously he'll get a main event matchup of his choosing. As for the result, though, I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. This particular contest, yeah, like I said, it wasn't a particularly great match, but it had a great result and a good outcome. So we take that as for what it is. Nick, what do you think though? Did Ober and Jay do it for you, or maybe you're sort of thinking the same thing as me? Maybe it was quite slow and sluggish.
Well, first and foremost, as you alluded to as well, the fact that Brock didn't make an appearance here, I was elated for. Like, all the signs pointed to him being here. You have a kickoff match, that's typically one of the favorite spots to Brock to come in. Everything was pointing to their matchup at SummerSlam, the third match of the series. Literally every single read, like, why else would they put it leading off? And just felt like it was written in the stars. Every reason pointed to that Jay was going to win, but it didn't happen. And so just getting that out of the way, love that. Agreed with you. Right person definitely won. Oba winning here. I just didn't think they were going to do it, but they did it, and they didn't. Do what was seemingly obvious, and so that's great. And not the first time they go, with a swerve here. It kind of what this ends up being. This ends up being a swerve. Yeah, I would agree with you in terms of the match. Obviously, wasn't the best quality. That kind of happens when you're facing an opponent that has three moves. So that just kind of is what it is. I don't hate Jay as much as most, but he just isn't on the same page as Oba. I think that's fair to say. But I loved Oba winning here, and can't wait to see what he does now as the ruler and the king of the ring. So can't wait to see who he ends up choosing. We'll obviously probably have some more discussions on that in the upcoming months. Rating wise for me, I give this one a 6 out of 10, just a smidge above yours. Probably is a bit biased in the fact that the person I wanted to win won. But yeah, I would agree with your sentiment as well that Oba's definitely felt like he was holding back a bit here. You don't want to bury the main eventer, obviously, as well. So, but it felt like maybe that would have been a nice statement from him. But regardless, we'll go ahead and move on to the queen of the ring side, where we have the women's world champion, Liv Morgan going up against iyosky for the Queen of the Ring in the finals. KP, same question on this side. Did the right woman win? I obviously think we all know the answer. That is a bit rhetorical, but how'd you rate the match? Better than the men's? Would like to get all of your thoughts on this one as well.
Well, firstly, for those that actually listened to our predictions for this one, I was extremely critical of this match taking place in the first place. Like, what was the point? You know, it's a women's championship, essentially. We could have just done, you know, instead of having the Queen of the Ring here, you've literally got the women's world champion in action against probably the best woman, you know, currently on Monday Night Raw. So it just seemingly was just, I don't know, a little bit pointless to me. You know, it just Liv Morgan being in this position. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. So I thought, okay, well, you know, I'm going to be extremely critical here. I'm going to just dish out as to why I don't like this matchup taking place in the way that it is. And I'll leave the door open for potentially being proven wrong, as if to say, like, oh, maybe something's going to happen, which makes me think that, you know, actually there's a reason this match was taking place, you know, for this particular reason right here. Having now watched this match, Liv Morgan versus iyosky, I can safely say that it absolutely categorically did not go any other direction as to what I thought it was going to. And that's a good thing, by the way. iyosky winning is the 100% the correct call. But there's no other sort of, you know, like hidden agenda in this matchup. There's no Judgment Day evolution of that story taking place. There's no sort of like you know, discourse between the groups. That doesn't sort of like take place here. It's literally just a one-on-one match. Nothing else really happens except for Danhausen at the very, very start. And Danhausen comes out before any entrances are made here between the two ladies. And he's addressing the crowd, basically saying how he loves Saudi Arabia. It's all great. And Liv Morgan interrupts him and then proceedingly gets cursed because she asked for all the human monies back. So, yeah, the curse obviously hits Liv Morgan. We knew she was going to lose straight away from there, which isn't a bad thing. Again, more than happy for Io to win here. This is 100% the right call. But just because there isn't really anything to take away from this one except for the fact that Liv Morgan lost to Io, which we will get at SummerSlam, which would have happened if we didn't have Liv in this match and it would have been someone else on the stage instead. I just really don't understand what the point of this whole thing was. That having been said, though, you know, logic out the window here. Actually, hold off on that front for a little bit. The matchup was pretty good. It was definitely better than the men's, the King of the Ring matchup for sure. I think that's quite easy to say because this one was a really good back and forth matchup. Both of them getting a lot of offense in with each other, and we see some smarts from Liv Morgan especially. It does have flaws though, and I'll explain why. It was decent enough for the King of the Ring final and had quality throughout, but when Io hurts her knee, this is where the match gets really interesting. So Liv zones in on the knee, like she did with Charlotte Flair in the semi-final. You know, utilizing the half crab that we saw, you know, tap out Charlotte Flair, and she really focuses on that knee, and that's a great thing. That shows the sort of like an experienced Liv Morgan, and that's, you know, great stuff. We get to the end of the contest though, after Io's gone through quite a lot of, you know, suffering at the hands of Morgan, a lot of offense taken out on her knee, and you can see that she's really, really struggling with it. Until she manages to somehow be completely fine for a sequence that includes a avalanche Spanish fly, which, by the way, you land on your front, so you're landing on your knees. That's taking a bit of the brunt from the impact there, and then she just gets back up, goes onto the top rope, hits her over the moonsault, and pins Liv Morgan like nothing happened previously to this. So don't get me wrong, I am not complaining that iyosky wins. 100% not complaining. This is the right call. But just the lack of logic going into this matchup, and then the lack of logic that actually takes place in the final stages of this contest, just makes it all just this complete and utter mess of logic from start to finish here. Like, it's a great match, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, it was fun, but just I couldn't believe the finish. It just didn't make any sense to me. Like, you don't get that much sort of force taken out upon one body part, and then suddenly be like, right, okay, well, I'm good now. Let's do my finish, and then okay, I've hurt my knee again now. It's really baffling to me. I did give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, I enjoyed the match. It's just I do think there are some glaringly bad flaws that WWE for some reason decided to go off on. So yeah, I don't know, one of those things. Maybe I just don't agree with it, but yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Dick. Are you as critical as I am? I've been extremely critical on this match in the build, and obviously to the literally the review of it right here, right now. Can you give it a bit more of a positive stance?
Well, first I will say I had similar feelings towards the build. I want to say very similar. And the fact that Liv shouldn't be here. If she was going to get to this point, it was she needed to take out one of her Judgment Day women to kind of create a stir there and kind of kickstart what seemingly feels like the inevitable. But they didn't do any of that. Instead, we got Io beating her, and I had the thought, it went through my head, but it didn't. I don't think it kind of rubbed me the wrong way quite as much as it did you. But yeah, that perfectly executed over the moonsault. Maybe needed to struggle on that a bit more than she did. But it didn't rub me the wrong way quite as much. I don't think. But regardless of all that, I thought it was a good match as well. Our notes are very similar in that I felt like both women had quite a bit of offense here, and then obviously it did take a turn when Io kind of landed on the steel steps there. I like the more grittier, capitalizing on the submissions kind of style from Liv. I think that suits her. I've always felt like she kind of lacked a certain something that kind of separates her from the competition. So I kind of like this new style that she's been doing in the ring. Obviously, to beat Charlotte Flair, that's obviously something, and to kind of push Io to the limits, kind of like she did here. I thought that was great, a great showing as well. Yeah, I can. I get your point definitely on the lack of selling there towards the end, but maybe we'll just call it a bit of momentum or adrenaline that she was kind of riding off that. So we'll just go with that. And yeah, definitely don't want to play the logic game with WWE too often. That'll put us in a pretty upset situation a lot of the time. So I do understand your point though. But with that, yeah, super happy with the result. Both the king and the queen of the ring finals, happy with the direction they went. And then, yeah, zero time wasted. Obviously, you mentioned the Danhausen curse at the beginning. I think that's going to play a part into what I was mentioning earlier. I think is inevitable, and that Roxanne and or Raquel turning on Liv, hopefully sooner rather than later, if that curse kind of takes full force. So looking forward to that story and kind of how that all unfolds. But yeah, right after the match, Sky declaring that she's going to basically beat her again at SummerSlam, take that Women's World Championship. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to that matchup. I think maybe that's if this was what we got here, I think they could probably capitalize on that even more. So can't wait to see what ends up unfolding. Rating wise, for me, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. With that, going into the next contest of the evening, we have Seth Rollins going up against Bron Breakker in a steel cage. And as announced by Cole, this being the final chapter of the rivalry, I'm glad they hit that home. I wish they do that more often, just so we know that this is the end. This is should be the end anyway. I kind of like that as opposed to just kind of being left up in the air. But anyways, KP, what'd you make of this final chapter of Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker?
Yeah, another match that we were obviously, questioning, certain parts of going into the match here at Night of Champions, and we're not so much, hoping and waiting for this one to end, but sort of like we're just noting that it has been going on for quite some time, and we feel like it probably is ready to sort of like take its natural course and just, come to an end. So thankfully, it does look like that is the case in this, in sort of the aftermath of this contest, because this was a brutal match. It was great. It was fun. It had a particularly strange finish, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But it was hellacious. This one offered just so much, just fire from both men. I guess is the right way to put it here, because they just bring absolutely everything from the feud into the steel cage, and it's just fantastic. Like, even going from the entrances, they both make their entrances, and as they're doing so, when they get to the ring, they don't just get in, they don't just get into the cage, they grab a few weapons each, they prep them in the ring, they get things ready. Almost to me feels like, how like in a War Games matchup where you got like a certain person that comes on down when they enter, and they grab maybe, I don't know, a trash can or a table on their way there, and they bring it into the ring with them. Almost felt like they were doing that. They were prepping for war, inside this cage. And that is exactly the perfect vibe that we wanted from this match. And what I will say also is this, and I'm sure you're going to be elated by this, Nick. The fact that we have two guys here who have been encapsulated in this whole Vision story, and we have zero outside interference in this entire match. No Paul Heyman, no Austin Theory, no Logan Paul, just Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker having an absolutely, crazy contest in a one-on-one capacity inside a steel cage with nothing else happening on the outside. I'm sure you'll be smiling about that, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts specifically on that particular part. But yeah, they have a bit of a stare down. They each sort of like sit on a steel chair they brought into the ring, and they just have a face-to-face to begin with. Like, okay, we're about to do this. I'm about to beat your ass. And that's literally just the vibe that I get from both men from the start. And that then spills into a pretty chaotic contest that was at times extremely destructive. We see two tables being broken through, kendo sticks being involved, even smashed up as well. Trash cans, I think, was in there and present. I'm not sure if it was actually used. I can't quite remember, but it was definitely there and involved. Steel chairs, using various different methods and whatnot here and there. And they just all add up for a massive fight, and the best way to end this rivalry. Towards the end of the contest, we do see that Seth is being lined up for a spear, and there's a table set up in the corner of the ring. Seth manages to avoid it, though, and that then forces Bron Breakker to go crashing through said table. And once he gets out of the way, then he sort of lines up Bron Breakker, hits a pedigree on him, follows up with a stomp, goes for a cover, and he only gets a count of 2, so Bron does kick out. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. So as Seth is sort of like, just perplexed that he didn't get the win, he doesn't sort of like wrestle to the laurels. He weighs up another stomp. He looks for another one. And as he's about to deliver another stomp, Bron Breakker sort of stops him. He sort of asks for a bit of mercy, I guess you could say. Puts his hand up. Please don't do any more. And he then sort of like has a moment where Seth Rollins just sort of like sits down in the corner. And like he almost like scouts him out. Like they're just watching what he's going to do. Bron Breakker, I guess just knowing that he's lost at this point, literally just goads Seth one more time, does this sort of like taunt where he sort of like tears that, something in front of him during his entrance like he normally does. And when he does that, Seth Rollins weighs him up one more time, goes up to the second rope, hits a super stomp, and that's the 1, 2, 3 and the end of this rivalry. Now, we both questioned, who would the right winner be here? I think I went Seth, you went Breakker, if I remember rightly, for different reasons, although quite actually the similar reasons, thinking, going forward, what's going to happen afterwards. I would love to see Seth going back into the world title scene. That's what I believe he should be doing. So for him to win this one, I think just naturally fits into that position. So interested to see what you're thinking about this now, because obviously you were going with Bron Breakker, if I remember rightly, Nick. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And also, what about that finish? Bron Breakker just goading Seth one more time. Was there something in that maybe I'm overlooking, maybe I'm not quite catching up on? I felt it was a little bit out of place. Maybe it was one more opportunity to Bron to try and play some mind games with Seth. I'm not entirely certain, but love to hear your thoughts on that one. As for the match, though, thoroughly enjoyed this one. Really good contest. Looking back on it, brutal. Great way to end the rivalry. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought this was a solid steel cage matchup. Maybe I'm being a little harsh. Maybe it should be a 9.5. You know what? I'm going to bump it up to a 9.5. Yeah, 9.5 from these two men. Just thoroughly delivered here on this Night of Champions PLE. What about you, Nick? What are your overall thoughts and those particular points that I've raised towards you?
Yeah, well, first of all, getting to the ending, because I'll forget if I go in chronological order here. I didn't have any issue with it. I just felt like it was probably, as you alluded to, probably playing a bit of mind games, and I felt like that was, his way of saying, maybe that would shock him and then kind of send him into a spiral, and that would allow Bron Breakker, give him that moment that he needed to finally get back some momentum. I didn't really read into too much into it, honestly, though. And maybe the more I think on it, the advantages and disadvantages of doing things so immediately after, you don't have that abundance of time to think about it. But yeah, I did pick Bron Breakker to win, and the reasoning behind that was similar to typical matches with Seth Rollins, and that is I don't feel that Seth losing here really would have done much harm to him and would have done worlds for Braun Breaker. But that being said, I have no issues with Seth winning. Obviously, he's one of my favorite talents in WWE, and I have no issues with him going to the world title scene either. Would love to see him go up against Roman Reigns, obviously. Now I guess he has the opportunity. I was originally going to say Cody Rhodes, but now he has the opportunity to go up against someone else, and that of Sami as well. So yeah, I have no issues with him entering back into that title scene. I'm just not sure what we do with Braun Breaker, and that's kind of one of the reasonings why I had my support behind Breaker. Just felt like he would probably be elevated from Seth into the main event scene, but no issues with what we got here. I thought this was a pretty brutal contest. In fact, really no one walked out of here weak, and that's always a great thing in mind as well. As for the no interference, but yes, you got me on the head there. It's great. It's great to see. We've seen a lot of surprises tonight. In the way that we didn't actually get a surprise, but it was more so like things that WWE typically does, they didn't do on several occasions tonight. Starting off with the Brock match, or the lack of Brock appearance in the opening contest. In this match, no Vision interference, which again, that's insane. And then obviously one more at the end that we'll hit once again towards the end of the video. But yeah, yeah, that was great. I love that. I love the idea and the thought behind that, just letting these two guys who clearly hate each other, just letting them go all in. Like I said, no guy really walks out here looking weak. Braun Breaker took, he ran through the table. He got hit with a stop. He got hit with a pedigree and still kicked out. And those were, there was not a lot of time in between those moves, by the way. And then to get the avalanche stop as well to finally put the nail in the coffin. Like I said, Braun Breaker walks away looking just as good as Seth, in my opinion. Obviously, didn't get the win, but took a lot to put him away. So love that. Loved continuing to build Braun up here, and yeah, so this was a ton of fun. I think less the main event being here, I think this probably would have been a match of the night for all of us here. But I do give this one a 9 out of 10. Curious to hear how that compares to your rating of the main event. But yeah, this was a ton of fun, and I think both guys just moving on from here. It was great, obviously for us. We get to see them do something different, but also just I think these two guys, especially that of Braun, have really made this rivalry special. Granted, a bit too long, but some of that not really on the fault. Most of that really not on the fault of them. So yeah, 9 out of 10 from me. The next contest of the evening has Ricky Saints going up against Trick Williams, who is defending his United States Championship. KP, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the first of two United States Championship matches throughout the course of this Night of Champions event, and yeah, we got the men's one on the line first, and I don't mind this match. It's one of those contests that I feel is particularly standard for the most part. It's a decent enough contest. Don't get me wrong. It's not quite the cleanest, but it had a decent flow to it. I liked what I saw from these two men here. Commentary made a very big sort of reference to the fact that Ricky Saints has got a 100% record against Trick Williams, but from his NXT days, and sort of like looking to continue that here, and obviously in this case would win the US Championship off of the back of that. Unfortunately, though, for Ricky, not going to be the case in this one. Despite his pretty superior mentality going into this contest and knowing how to sort of like get around Trick's wacky little ways, I guess you could say. We do see a particular part of the contest where Lil Yachty, who is obviously supporting Trick Williams on the outside, he's got a lovely looking kendo stick, and Ricky Saints goes to ringside at one point, just naturally spills out there, and with Lil Yachty around the situation, Ricky goes over to him, just essentially takes the kendo stick away from Yachty. And we see the referee sort of getting distracted by that. Trick Williams sort of complaining. And the referee turns to Trick Williams, sort of like calm him down essentially from the situation. And Ricky Saints, just smashes the kendo stick against the steel steps, gives it to Lil Yachty, and then just literally falls on his back. Eddie Guerrero, would be proud of this one. And then we see the referee sort of like being aware of the situation, assuming that Lil Yachty attacked Ricky Saints. Obviously, that was not the case, but the referee, assuming that was right for the situation, he then calls for Lil Yachty to be removed from ringside, and he sends him out to the back. So yeah, Mind Games did a treat there for Ricky Saints. Outside of that particular moment, though, of outsmarting Williams, I thought it was just a quite standard contest. After that, it felt really flat as well. The crowd were especially poor for this contest, which didn't really help proceedings here. Didn't really give that sort of like a just momentum that I think Trix especially had since his start to the main roster career of himself. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. But yeah, it's one of those things, I suppose. In the end, we do see Trick avoiding a Revolution DDT. He then bounces off the ropes a couple of times, and then that allows him to then land his trick shot, which is the big knee strike to the face, and that'll be the 1-2-3 here for Trick Williams to retain his US title. Post-match, we do see Ricky Saints looking to actually attack Trick Williams, sort of like, out of pure, just annoyance that he lost the matchup. And then we see the return of Lil Yachty. He comes back in, and he helps Trick Williams sort of like lay down Ricky Saints. And then we see a moment where Lil Yachty sees the spotlight, and he goes for a people's elbow. He literally, in very Rock style, lands on people's elbow, and then just joins the celebrations with Trick, having retained his US title. I get a 6.5. Like I said, it's okay, it's fine, it's decent enough, but it didn't do anything special for me personally. It didn't feel out of the ordinary, which is a damn shame. Nick, what do you think, though? A little bit too critical for me again here, or do you sort of like think this one was quite maybe basic, safe, standard proceedings here? Did it belong on the PLE?
Well, no issues with it being on a PLE, but unfortunately, the sentiment from me is similar to yours in that Ricky did come out of the gates firing here, obviously attacking Trick before he even got to take his coat off, and then pulling his best Eddie Guerrero impression. Definitely brought his A game today, and obviously mentioning from the announce team that he had a perfect record against Trick. Obviously, no longer, but yeah, in the end, it didn't quite matter. Even though he did have the momentum, it felt like Trick didn't have a ton of control over this match. Felt like Ricky kind of had the upper hand through most of the match. Mind games and in the ring both. But in the end, I guess it doesn't matter. It's whoever gets the pin. In this case, obviously, as Trick Williams still our men's United States Championship. I will say, I think probably Trick is probably needing to walk away from this. Kayfabe, need to be better prepared for a match like this with someone who has obviously a lot of experience in the ring with him. Obviously, Lil Gotti, as you alluded to, that was definitely a moment. I think they were probably expecting that to be a little bigger than it was. But as you alluded to, the crowd was pretty dead during this one, and honestly, probably the most dead they were throughout the entire evening. For whatever reason, this match, maybe just kind of coming off of the high that was the match before. Sometimes that just happens in the order of events. But yeah, no issues with this being here. I think probably more so what the situation here is as we end a couple of other rivalries. I think this one's probably just getting started. We'll probably see this one again, maybe with Carmelo being added. But I definitely think they were holding back a bit because they intend to proceed here with additional matches. Unfortunately, that is just kind of the style of WWE sometimes, in that we can't give you 3 good matches. We have to slow build to a great one. So, unfortunately, that is kind of the case sometimes. But in terms of rating, I did give this one a 6 out of 10. Getting into the next contest and heading to the women's side of the United States Championship scene, we have Jade Cargill going up against Tiffany Stratton for the Women's United States Championship. KP, thoughts on this one? And naturally, because it occurred right after the other one, I'd like to get your thoughts on which match you thought was better.
I think we'll nail that one quickly out the gates here. I think this one. I think this one was slightly better than the men's equivalent of the US title scene, and that was purely for the fact that we do get a pretty nice back and forth matchup between these two ladies. I think in our first 3 quarters of this matchup, I want to say it's very much a 75-25 split here, in my opinion, of what we actually got content-wise in this match. And like I said, it's very much one-on-one back and forth between the two ladies, and it's quite a good. It's got quite a good feel to it. We go back and naturally probably will compare their matches last year to this one, where obviously Jade took the women's title from Tiffany, and I think that that's completely fair to do so, because it's not that long ago, to be fair, and obviously it's back in a different championship scene now, quite recently afterwards, but obviously a completely different scene nonetheless. Yeah, it's I think it's decent. I think it's a pretty decent match. It transcends into utter chaos in the last few minutes, courtesy of several distractions here and there. But it is just quite an even contest. You know, we see both ladies go into their arsenals, having a really back and forth match, and everything seems logical, making sense, and just continues what the build was going into this one, and builds off afterwards as well. And let me explain why I'm saying that. Basically, towards the end of this contest, we do see Tiff looking for a Swanton Bomb. I believe she was going for that one anyway. Until Michin and BFAB, obviously, you know, the two assistants members of Jade Cargill, they come on down to sort of like help out Jade, and they distract Tiffany Stratton, knocking her to ringside, before then Chelsea Green appears from under the ring to cancel them both out. As the sort of like action continues there, we sort of see the championship going, being knocked off of the pedestal on the outside, and then it's sort of being brought back into the conversation moments later, and we see Jade Cargill eventually going over to use it because it lands in the ring, it lands off the canvas. So Jade goes to use it, possibly attacking Chelsea Green, who has sort of been caught up in all the offense here at this stage, and like it's sort of like cowering in the corner after coming to Tiff's aid. Yeah, with Jade looking to use that championship, she goes to grab it, and as she's about to, we then see Charlotte Flair appear. Obviously, Charlotte Flair was cost her, essentially cost anyway, her Queen of the Ring semi-final match against Liv Morgan, courtesy of Jade Cargill, BFAB, and Michin last week on SmackDown. So logically, you know, that sort of like ties in here. Charlotte Flair getting some payback and returning the favor here, costing Jade Cargill in way of smashing her in the face with the US Championship. And then we see Tiffany Stratton quickly on the case to capitalize. She hits a rolling fireman's carry, and then her prettiest moonsault ever to get the victory and retain her championship. Is it a world-class match? No. Is it absolutely stellar? Not really. It's a good enough contest with some very logical proceedings that will build into Charlotte Flair and Jade Cargill going forward. This opens up Tiffany Stratton moving away from Jade into something completely different, and we'll obviously see what happens from there. But I'm liking the fact that we continue that Jade and Charlotte feud. I'm looking forward to that match taking place, and I'm glad that we sort of like see it building through here in this PLE, to sort of like making it on that big stage, and it sort of like has that level of importance going into it. So yeah, I liked it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I did enjoy this one more than the men's US Championship matchup. I wouldn't say it was like miles better, but it was a touch better, and it was just everything seemed to just, you know, hit quite nicely in this one. Nothing was out of place, and it all made sense. Nick, what do you think though? Did you prefer this to the men's US title match? Do you think that all of the interferences were a bit too much, or do you think it was about right and it was all logical, like I said? What are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, on paper, I'm sure if you asked both of us before which we thought would be the better match, we probably would have went on the men's side. But alas, another surprise from this PLE, we'll call it that. Um, First of all, just Jade Cargill has improved immensely. It helps when you're in the ring with someone you've wrestled with probably 100 times over the last year, in dark matches included and all of that. That definitely helps, but it just feels like she is really getting the hang of it. Tiffany had a bit of a rough patch there as well. Feels like she's kind of back on Tiffy time, if you will. Definitely hitting her stride once again. And so these two really just put on a nice contest. And there was a point where anytime I saw a Jade Cargill match, I would be nervous because I was fear for something bad happening. And the hair mishap, maybe a little under a month ago, aside, she really has improved. This match is no exception. Both women getting in decent amounts of offense here and a pretty good back and forth. My biggest fear from this match was that Tiffany was going to lose it to Jade, and then they were going to go to the Charlotte. Jade could, then Charlotte could win a U.S. title because why not? I mean, she's been away from that title scene for a while, but luckily that did not happen. Tiffany is able to retain here, and again, I don't love interference, but everything that happens here makes sense. Obviously, you have the Charlotte stuff that we've been flirting with. Finally can take that in that direction, as you already mentioned. And then you have the assistants, I think, as you call them. I think the announcers referred to them as baddies, referring to Michin and BFAB, which is a little cringe, honestly. But take it for what it is, I guess. Them coming into play, obviously, it was going to be that way. And then Chelsea Green. I don't know where Chelsea fits into this in the long run, but obviously Charlotte and Jade, obviously that has money match written all over it. Charlotte's obviously one of the best female talents in the business. So her going up against Jade, just allowing Jade to continue that road of improvement. No issues with that. Where does Tiffany go? I'm not really sure. But the fact that she's moving on, not going to continue this feud, reignited feud with Jade, that's all good for me. So yeah, really, really solid contest here, as you said. Definitely won't win match of the year, but better than the previous United States Championship match. So take that for what it is. I think that as a win, at least on my side. So 7 out of 10 for me. Now, finally getting into the assuming will be the highlight of this video, and this is the main event, which has the Ring General going up against Sami Zayn, going up against the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, who is defending his WWE United States WWE Undisputed Championship, moving away from the United States Championship bit here. This is a day and a moment that I guess we weren't sure if it was going to ever happen. Obviously, KP, current favorite wrestler in the business, is that of Sami Zayn, so likely has lots and lots of things to get off of his mind here and kind of go off. So KP, take it over, and can't wait to hear what you have to say here.
I'm sort of like between two sides of the coin here. One is to go completely professional and, just to be doing what I normally do, nice standard review, keep things at a steady pace. Or the other side is just to completely just go out and go crazy and just go with the whole, I am a massive Sami Zayn fan, just absolutely just, go into what I'm currently feeling right now. I tell you what, I'm going to do both, and we'll do the one by one. First and foremost, we do have a triple threat matchup here for the WWE Undisputed Championship, like you said. And in terms of how this one takes place, this one has a pretty classic triple threat vibe to it. It's just got what you would expect. When you have three men in the ring, you've always got two that are sort of in and around the conversation at the time. You've got somebody else who may not necessarily be involved right there and then, but it's sort of, waiting for their time to, play an impact or capitalize on a moment. And that seemingly is ever present in this contest. We see Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes having a couple of moments here and there via ways of pinfalls on Gunther, and the other one of Sami and Cody is there to sort of like tear the referee out the ring, to pull him out, and to basically just stop the pinfall, sort of like a last gasp, attempt to keep the match up from ending right there and then. And we see sort of, Gunther being sort of, I don't know, not necessarily like the third wheel in this matchup, but it does almost feel like it's more so on Cody and Sami. The way this one has sort of, does sort of go down throughout the whole proceedings. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because you can relate to the fact that Cody and Sami have had probably the bigger of the interactions going into this matchup. So for them to be the main focal point, I think makes more sense. As for Gunther, to speak about him like that almost feels criminal to me, because I love Gunther a lot. But I love someone a lot more than I love Gunther, and that is Sami Zayn. And for me to have watched this matchup and to not have really expected anything from it in terms of A, Cody Rhodes losing a title, but B, Sami Zayn winning the title, it just makes it all the more of a bigger moment for me, personally speaking. And I'm going to go into it right now. So as you can see on the image change there on the screen, we do have a brand new WWE champion that comes off the back of this one. That is Sami Zayn. And that comes in way of Cody Rhodes having both Sami and Gunther locked in for a crossroads. He hits them both with it, and then Gunther rolls to the outside, leaving Cody to attempt a second one on Sami. As he goes to do so, we do see Sami sort of like rolling through and sort of like catching Cody by surprise. That is enough to get the 1-2-3 here and to become the brand new WWE Undisputed Champion after he pins the Golden Boy to do it as well. B've got a massive smile on my face right now because I've been wanting to say that. But yeah, just this has been sort of highlighted for a number of years now. Sami Zayn has spent 10 years on the main roster competing in world title matches, not necessarily once every year, but just sort of like when the time is seemingly correct or appropriate, and he's never really come up trumps. This was an opportunity for for people like me, the ride or die fans, to basically just have our moment and to enjoy this absolutely incredible occasion. And maybe this sounds a little cringe, maybe it just sounds like I'm just getting my bias out here, but this guy deserves it. He absolutely 100% is criminally underrated as a professional wrestler and entertainer. He is just great at everything that he seemingly does. Okay, maybe some things here and there, maybe not so much, but yeah, he has peaks, but that's like everybody. I think when you look at this guy's career, you have to think that this guy is a world champion he's got that material, he's got that repertoire, he's got the charisma in the ring, and he's got the ability to be on that stage with the likes of Gunther, with the likes of Cody, with the likes of Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, all those kind of names. Sure, he's not quite the same in terms of your typical needle mover or your merch seller or whatever, but in terms of his grind, his take on the business, this is a moment that honestly for me is one of my favorite ever moments in wrestling. And I'm not exaggerating there. I'm struggling to keep the emotions in right now. I was watching at the time and I got very, very emotional watching this one. Yeah, I'm just overjoyed right now. It's a culmination of 10 years, and it's more than that as well. It's more than that for him. That's just 10 years of competing for the title. He was there on the main roster before that. He was there in NXT, and he's obviously there. Well, he's been a wrestler, for however long before he got to the company anyway, under maybe a more, slightly generic vibe before that. But yeah, I got a lot of love for this one, but I can't say everything that I'm I'm hoping to say because I would be here for way too long. I'd be here for hours. But what I will say is, this matchup, yeah, it just had a really nice flow. Nothing felt slow or out of place, and it's got a fantastic finish. The story spilt into the contest. It went throughout the whole thing, and we can look back on this one and think, you know what, this build, it makes sense because it led to this moment, and this is a great payoff for this one. As to where we go from here on afterwards, normally this is where I think, oh, well, coming up next, you look like it's probably going to be this, probably going to be that. You know what? I've had some time to reflect. I don't care what comes up right now. I don't care what comes up next, because all I want to focus on is the fact that our brand new WWE Undisputed Champion is Sami Zayn, and I'm going to enjoy this moment whilst I fricking can. So, yeah, I gave it a 9 out of 10. The moment's a 100 out of 10. But I will appreciate the match wasn't 100%, amazing in terms of, like, I've seen better triple threats is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, the moment, if I can separate that from this match, yeah, you're talking at least 100 out of 10 from me, but I'm on cloud 9. I'm loving it. What a great end to this show, and what a nice freaking surprise. Nick, I'll leave it over to you now. I think I've had my say. What do you think, bud?
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is more about you than me, but just hitting quick thoughts here. I was shocked to get the pin over Cody. That's another shock. And again, this show is full of them in the best ways. Not to do something surprising isn't something WWE does a lot of times. And it felt like the writing was on the wall. We were going to continue to flirt with Sami being champion until next year's WrestleMania because it's in the same exact location. Felt like that's what they were going to do, and so. My jaw was on the floor just having him win it here was pretty crazy. And now I would assume, I guess we have him hold on to it until next Mania. I don't have any issues with that, and I don't have to ask you if you have issues with that. Yeah, this was a bit. Sammy's. I love Sami as well. Obviously, nowhere near as much as you do. I prefer the other two guys in the ring just from a character perspective and in ring perspective. But it does feel. What's really crazy is that to get off topic just a little bit, KP and I are working on the NXT project that we've mentioned, and you've heard us mention on the past few streams over the week. We just saw him win the NXT title, so it's kind of funny how that worked out in timing wise. Haven't yet released them yet, but it's been a week of Sami, so it's worked out for the best. I like this match quite a bit. No, it's not the best triple threat. Obviously, triple threat matches are typically lots of fun, so the bar is very high there. But I think this was a pretty good triple threat match, and obviously the moment is going to surpass what we think of the match. Anyways, I'll probably have to go back and watch the match just so I can get it back into my head what it looked like. But for what it was, I enjoyed it. Definitely not match of the year or anything, but the moment is definitely going to be a moment of the year. So with that, I too gave this one a 9 out of 10. So matching the high of Seth and Bron earlier in the evening. But yeah, what a moment it was, and I'm just elated for you, KP, to be able to experience that and be able to do this live right after to kind of get your emotions on the spot. We don't get to do this often, obviously, so this is it worked out well. All things kind of happen for a reason, and this is just a special moment for you and us in general over here on the push. So glad we were able to encapsulate that on this video. So with that, KP, Night of Champions, I have a feeling I know what your highlight might be, but best matches and least favorite matches, maybe surprising matches, whatever you have to say. We'll go ahead and get that out there, and we'll get this one wrapped up.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think I'll go from low to high in this one. Dealer's choice, I guess you could say. Low point of the evening, I guess probably I'll sort of like scratch that over that as most disappointing moment of the evening, and that probably is the Men's United States Championship matchup. I didn't particularly rate the matchup, generally speaking, as obviously I've gone over. And then Liv and Io, just I don't know, just one of those matches that I didn't really think needs to happen in the first place, and I was pretty much right to believe that based on what we saw. My worst match of the evening was obafemi and Jey Uso, but then my best match of the evening was Bron Breakker and Seth Rollins. And then obviously the best moment of the night is my best moment probably in the last, like, I don't know how many years of wrestling, to be honest with you. And that is Sami Zayn defeating Cody Rhodes. And I guess Gunther as well. Sort of like put a nice little pause in between there. But it's something that I'm never really going to forget. This is a really freaking awesome, ending to a show that I was enjoying anyway, for the most part. But then just, blew the freaking roof off for me right at the very end. So yeah, pure emotion, pure adulation, and just genuinely just relieved that finally WWE have pulled the trigger and they've given the guy the respect that he does absolutely 100% deserve. So yeah, just solid all around. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. That's an average of all my matches put together in an overall setting. So yeah, on the upper side of things here, really, a lot more positives than negatives, which is what you want from a PLE. And it was a 6-match card that didn't feel like it was going too quickly at any particular point, except for maybe the opener. So take that for what it's worth. We can do this, so I'm hoping we can see more of this. There don't have to be 5 matches on a card. There can be 6, and it can flow nicely. So this is proof of the pudding that it still works in 2026. Let's hope for more of these. Nick, what do you think of the show? Highs and lows, best match, worst match, all the kind of stuff in between.
Yeah, go on, my summary quite quickly because a lot of them are the same. Obviously, worst match, I would have to say King of the Ring finals as well between Jay and Oba. We're gonna pen that on Jay again. I'm not one to hate on Jay, but the common denominator is definitely there. I look forward to Ruler Obafemi's King of the Ring reign and kind of seeing what he does in the meantime. Best match of the evening, or I guess most disappointing match, I would agree with you, Ricky and Trick. But I have hopes that they're going to continue to build up on that one. Best match of the night, yeah, probably Seth and Bron. The ratings were the exact same on my end, but I did enjoy that match more. It felt like it was something a bit different. But then obviously moment, is obvious that is Sami Zayn. I love that for you. Again, I love that we got to have that moment live right after it took place. Don't get to do that very often due to the time difference. But to go from the U.S. title scene dressed as a gingerbread man to the undisputed WWE champion in a short period is pretty impressive. So love that for you, KB. Drink it and enjoy it. But yeah, what did you all make of Night of Champions? In terms of my rating, I guess it was a 7.5 out of 10. Pretty quality. It looked good on paper, and honestly, it did deliver. Good thing we did get a change of champion there at the end, because if it wasn't for Sami winning, we would have had Night of Champions without a single change in titles. So another reason why it all worked out. Honestly, this card just was very consistent. It was very good. It lived up to the expectations, but doesn't happen a lot, especially when they're on the higher end of things. So lots of surprises and in a good way. So yeah, this was a great PLE, honestly. But yeah, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Let us know what you thought of Night of Champions. What was your highlight, your lowlights, everything in between? We'd love to hear from you. And what are your thoughts on Sami Zayn, new undisputed WWE champion and the king and queen of the ring? We'd love to hear from you on that as well. But per usual, we'll be back shortly. We'll be back. We're watching Great American Bash tomorrow night. We'll do the reactions for those Monday morning, and then of course the typical Raw, NXT, SmackDown, and we are continuing to work on that NXT PLE project. So lots going here at the push, lots to look forward to, and yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below. Otherwise, we will be back shortly, and until next time, this has been the push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.